Hey y'all, I am excited. Did I say just excited? I'm super excited. I always say I'm super excited, but I am super excited to introduce to you a very important guest that I have today, Ryan Findley from Evergreen AI. And we just have such an important conversation to talk about today, something that I feel like needs to be put out there into this space and what I know that many schools are facing. We're going to talk AI and we are going to talk about the importance of approaching this from the top down and really planning for this in our schools. So I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for joining me, Ryan.
Thank you. This is great. I'm excited.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work with Evergreen and all the things you're doing.
Yeah. So I often tell my story that starts with my dad, and he taught 30 years in a public school, and I kind of grew up in this classroom and around this school, and just had so much respect for what he had done, and I at the same time I felt like I don't think I'm going to do this. I don't think I'm cut out for the 30-year journey. I did end up teaching for a few years and have been in education really my whole career in places. So teaching at a high school level, teaching at the college level, helping start a college, being in a college in a university leadership team, and now in sort of more in tech, in building an ed tech company. And so after more than a decade and 15 years really in the classroom and curriculum design and school design, stepping over into the tech world over the last 5, 6 years, my eyes have just been open to this, the ways in which that education technology can be, mutually beneficial and can actually help achieve better educational aims. And that really has helped open my eyes to this important conversation around AI because it's come in hot, and I think it's something that we've got to talk about, and we've got to answer some pretty serious questions about it.
We do. And I want to just mention too the partnership that we've started earlier this year with Sequoia. There goes my cough. I'm gonna cough, excuse me, right when I try to say it.
You're good.
Y'all excuse me. I have a cough drop in and it's been doing most of its work, but every once in a while. Okay. I will get that edited so it's not so awkward. Um, but you and I connected earlier this year. Really, you approached me to be an ambassador for SequoiaCon, this AI conference that you put on, and you wanted to connect and really talk about it. And we actually had a really long conversation because I said, hey, look, I'm not endorsing everything AI at the moment. I have my reservations. I want to be cautious about this. I want to make sure that I'm not putting my stamp of approval on something that really goes against the other things that I'm saying right now. So, we had a great discussion and we talked about, this meaningful approach in making sure that we are not putting kids in front of chatbots without any rails on and without any type of plan, really. I mean, that's kind of where we are. It's a Wild West situation. People are excited, there's shiny new objects, but then there's also a lot of trepidation, a lot of fears. I think we kind of started with the fear of cheating, and I think now people are now realizing that this is much bigger than a cheating thing when we really look at what AI can bring to the table, but also the things that we need to be cautious about as schools. And so I was really happy to see the success of SequoiaCon. I heard some great feedback. I wasn't able to present this year. Maybe we'll talk about that later, but I really did enjoy kind of seeing it from afar and understanding what was going on and all the amazing ideas that people were sharing. But we have come back to the table to talk about something else and really to talk about that missing piece now. Everybody's excited for the most part in the ed tech space, I should say. The ed tech people are excited. The other people are like, hey, wait, what? Do we have a policy for this? How do we plan for this? Do I need to train my teachers on this? Do I need to train my kids on this? What's going on? And really, how do we approach this? Because it can't be ignored, it can't be blocked, it's part of everything. What do we do? And so there's kind of this huge missing piece. So how do we approach this as a school, as an entire district?
Yeah, it's such an important conversation. I think uh, I start with sort of the high level of the situation, right? I think from a first principles standpoint, we have what I would call and what many sort of thinkers call like a wicked problem. We've got this really disruptive technology, and it's just it's on us so quickly. For most people, it was just not on their radar at all until maybe end of the year 2022. And it was like, yeah, AI, future, robots, all that, blah, blah, blah. But then it was just all of a sudden it was there in our hands. And I think it's not the first time we've had a disruptive technology, everything from, fire to steam engines to automobiles and computers. All these things have been disruptive in the the way that humans operate. The difference with this one was that it was freely available. And by freely, I mean like literally free. You could just go to a website, give it your email, and it's suddenly available to you. Um, but it was also rapidly and exponentially improving. And even for people for whom it was free, right? So when the steam engine came along or electricity, there was a high barrier to entry. There were people who could afford it and people who couldn't. And the people who could afford it were the ones who kind of like bore the brunts of figuring this thing out to for the rest of us. That wasn't the case with AI, especially I mean specifically generative AI. When it came out, it was just a free for all. And because of this, it led to a really interesting and different sort of dynamic that I think we've been used to in our, in human history, which is that all of a sudden something that was really disruptive and really game changing was just in our faces, and in front of everybody who wanted it, including kids. And what that meant was that there were no experts in those early days to show us the way, and everyone was just kind of figuring it out for themselves, right? Everybody has access, but nobody has expertise. And so it's this funny situation where everyone's kind of looking around, like, do you know how to use this? Do you know how to use this? What do we do? What are you doing? And and the only experts, if there are any, are typically in theory, right? The theory of AI, computer science, large language models, how do these things work? And if they're out there, they work for the big five companies or whatever that are actually building this stuff in Google and in Microsoft and OpenAI, et cetera. And so, in addition to them not being probably willing or able to say anything, they're also not experts in K-12, right? And so we have this right there. We have a really interesting problem that is unlike anything we've ever faced, and so it kind of takes a different approach than we've had, with cell phones, computers, uh, calculators, typewriters before that. Um, I think the second piece is that where there might be a chance to have some commonplace guidance or common sense guidance or just some like rules of thumb, those largely don't exist right now. Partially because governments have yet to figure out how to legislate this, and that trickles down into education, whether it's state boards of education or departments of education. Most of them at this point, 80% of them have not yet created state level guidance for their districts. And so what you have is districts and schools really just figuring this out, on the fly. This is tough. It puts a lot on the districts to figure out, to all of a sudden be really tech savvy. And that's not everybody's expertise. Usually they got where they are because they're great administrators or they're great, on teaching and learning or whatever it might be. It wasn't because they were great technologists. And even if they were, well, you still got to think about what are all the places that AI touches? What are all the things that AI has to, where you need new policies, procedures, processes to account for, this new technology that's got its fingers kind of in everything. Um, and then I think another problem too with that is with that, no experts idea and no everyone kind of experiencing this for the first time is that there's nobody kind of beside us who we can learn from and sort of show our work to and say, what do you think? Is this good? Would you say it this way? What did your lawyers say? Like a lot of those conversations haven't been able to happen. And so we sort of,
Yeah.
again, sort of adding to this complicated problem.
Yeah, of course we can consult AI about what we should do about AI, but there therein lies the problem, and I'm hearing this from a lot of different schools too, like we don't have a policy in place. Or even when I'm asked to present, they may ask me which tools I'm going to mention. Do they block it? Do they not block it? Those are the big questions. Well, we've approved this one. In the probably I would say in the more conservative schools that have the block first mentality. And then there's the ones who are kind of like, well, let's just let them go and see what happens. And then they run into, oh, now we're on the news because something did happen, kind of thing. So, they've got to find that balance between, the protection side versus preparing kids to work and live in this world that is changing faster than ever. And, I think there's two sides of this coin. There's both the how do we use it as educators, but then there's also what do kids need to know and how do we actually teach them that. But in so many schools, I'm in Texas and I know they are scrambling. Like there's some websites out there that have put out some suggested
Mhm.
policies. They're trying to add it into their acceptable use policies and things like that. But I have not seen a top-down plan. They're still trying to figure that out. We don't know what we don't know. And so I was very interested to find out that you are actually working on this big problem because um, they don't know what to do, and like you said, they're not prepared for it, right? You can bring in, and many of the people probably following this are like me. They were, an ed tech coach at a campus, and you happen to be the tech savvy one who loves to learn all of those new things, but you don't necessarily know how to write policy about those types of things. And nobody else has ever written policies about it. So where do we begin, right? We don't have the examples. So what is your approach to this in helping really school? We're talking like school wide, district wide, in terms of kind of standardizing some things around the idea of AI.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think one thing to note, we're going to talk about the AI Academy, which is something that we're going to be running starting this summer, and we'll get into that. One thing I just want to point out really quickly that you were hinting at, Casey, is that uh, this is also unique in that AI is both, I call it both, it's the ends and the means, right? So it's a tool, and we can think of it like, a website or a license that I buy, and it's like, it's a thing that I can use to accomplish a task. It's also a domain of study unto itself, right? And so it's like Wikipedia and effective research skills in one. It's like a calculator and polynomials or order of operations in one. It's Google Docs and persuasive essays all in one. And so there's a need to be able to decide how to use the tool and what do we buy, what do we not buy, what do we block, and also how do you understand this domain of knowledge. And so we think both are important. There are tools and there are things that people shouldn't be using and should. There's also kind of a general understanding about AI. For example, one thing that we all kind of miss, not being, most of us not being computer scientists, I'm not, is that AI, we all talk about AI. Mostly what we're talking about right now in everyday sort of parlance is generative AI, right? There are other kinds of AI, actually some that's been around, you know, we've been using it in Siri and, Amazon and all kinds of stuff. But, there's all kinds of AI that are not generative that we're not talking about. But it's important to know in this new age that there are different kinds of AI and some different, some are better for other things. And even knowing when to use one over the other is one of those kind of future skills that I think most of us are going to need on a 5, 10, 15-year horizon. So that's another piece too. It's more complex than almost anything we've faced yet, and so that's where we at Evergreen really want to come alongside schools to help them figure this out, and that's why we've created the AI Academy. So I can hop into that and tell folks about that if you think that's helpful.
Yeah, no, I do want to come back to something that I heard you say during SequoiaCon and kind of the promotion of it was let's do better than what we did with cell phones. I probably didn't say that as well as you did, but
Yeah.
here we are now facing a dilemma where a lot of schools are making decisions to try to get the phones out of schools, that technology has caused so many problems. So we're kind of butting heads now too with about Okay, what technology is too much technology, and what technology is distracting from the learning as well.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated that comment because I think we are seeing that problem so prevalent now that we didn't know it would become what it became, right? We had no idea when the kids started showing up with the little flip phones what it would be like today or what our own lives would probably be like as I sit here watching my tornado watch on my phone as we record. But um, I think that's something that we have to consider is, can we learn some lessons along the way? Have we learned anything from our past?
So,
Because it's not getting any easier at all. But no, I'm very interested to hear more about this academy. I would love a sneak peek at your dream team that I've heard about, and kind of your approach to this, and who are all the stakeholders that you have involved in this.
yeah, yeah. So the AI Academy is built to be this sort of year-long experience where we take folks through really the main parts of what we think every district needs to have in place in this, age of AI, just as a starting point. So there's sort of three or four P's that we want people to think about, and we're gonna focus on three of them. So, the first one is policies and making sure that schools have those things in order. And so this is making sure, everything from an acceptable use to tech policy, emergency response plans sometimes need updating, student handbooks, parent handbooks if you have them, or parent permissions, parent comms all need to be updated. And so, that's sort of the first big one, just making sure at the highest level, everything is aligned and, in agreement with the philosophy of the school and the district and the board, et cetera. The second P is the professional development. And so this is where it's both for teachers and staff. There are huge benefits. We think about the teachers a lot, but there's a huge benefit to all the classified and certificated staff as well. And so we want to help them think about, first of all, like, what are their personal workflows and what are ways that they could save time on a given Tuesday, or Saturday when they're working and they kind of wish they weren't, to save a bit of time and get back to their family, or to resting, whatever it might be. And we can talk more about what those are. But there's also things like, the legalities and ethics. Of course, with SIPA and COPPA and FERPA and all these things, there are things there. There's also the ethical questions about, could I have an AI give my student feedback on his or her paper? That's a question we should be talking about, and it's not up for Ryan to decide. That's a district level conversation. How does that feel
Right.
with our local control sort of ideas about, what's okay? Um, there's a whole bunch of really cool things that teachers can be trained on around AI leveraged or infused pedagogy. And I think my mind always runs wild, and my team too, when we think about all the effective, safe, scaffolded ways that AI could be used in the classroom. There actually are a ton, and it's actually really exciting. So that's something we're super excited to get into. And then there's all the support and guiding of young people with this, right? And helping them not just use the tools, know when to use it, when not to, understand what's cheating, what's not, but also, thinking about the future perspective of this. There are many facets to it, and the teachers and the staff counselors need to understand, how to even help a kid with an existential question of like, I can't do anything better than the robot. Like, what do I do? So that's the second P of professional development. The third one is programming for students, right? And this is we think of this as AI literacy. There's the safety side. There's the academic integrity side. There's also helping students understand the different personas that the AI can take, specifically, with the generative AI, with AI as a collaborator, as a study buddy, as a multiplier, as a tool to help them make graphics that they could never make on their own. That's me. Like, I can't design this stuff, but I can type in the words and get these great images, or make a song or whatever it might be, and then again train them on AI as a future skill, 21st century skill, and the skills that wrap around it, like critical thinking and collaboration and communication, some of the things that we have been talking about for a long time, and now I think are even more prominent. So those are the big blocks. And I can talk about sort of nuts and bolts of how the program goes, but those are the big things we want to make sure a school covers. And if they can do that, then we think they're going to be in a very good position coming into, the subsequent school years.
Yeah. I mean, I just couldn't help but think about the fact that so many schools could have never predicted that they would need a policy in place to handle what happens when students create deep fakes. We've already seen some lawsuits and things coming out of that, and schools being held responsible too. Like there's so many things that you would just never think as an administrator that would become part of something you had to worry about. And I think what you're doing is such important work. And I really like this idea. Now, this is a cohort style
Mm,
academy, right? Where so they're working in as individuals or with bringing in their whole team.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we think it could be an AI task force. So a lot of districts are spinning those up and they're saying, okay, you team of 4, team of 10, you all go figure it out. What do we do? What do we do about, do we buy any products? Do we bring in any speakers? Do we have to change our whatever policy? Do we have to buy a new curriculum? And this group is going to be, sort of the mandated team to go figure this out, figure this out. So that's what we think is going to be just prime for this program. We also know that in some cases districts aren't there yet. They're probably earlier and they say, okay, we can't do nothing. Let's send one of our, top ranking folks. Maybe it's an education technologist, maybe it's an assistant soup, maybe a CAO, somebody who has the flexibility, the purview, the responsibility, the trust to go out and cultivate or curate whatever is the best out there and to bring it back to the district for thinking in the technology office, in the math department, in staff development department, whatever it might be. So uh, yeah, it could be for teams or individuals, and
Okay.
it's kind of a combination of three things. It's a guided tour through this world of AI. It's a laboratory for experimentation, and it's a cohort, as you said. So first, the guided tour. What we do is we bring in folks who have been leaning into AI from the very start. As I said before, there are no experts, and I think anybody who says they're experts, like I would be leery because I wouldn't say it myself, and it's a scary thing to put that hat on. So we bring in people who've been playing with this from the early days, and even some who were on the game, before the big drop in 2022, but who've been really thinking about AI for a really long time. And we bring them in to share best practices. These are folks who are in the classroom or working in or around schools on a regular basis. So they're not sort of just a LinkedIn influencer who's got a lot of ideas, but this is somebody who's really
Right.
close to practice. I think that's very important. And they're going to be spending, a whole block of time with participants saying, hey, here's the best practices. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what works. Here's what hasn't worked. There's a lawsuit about this. Be careful about that. And kind of giving them a lay of the land as far as, best in practice pedagogy or professional development, et cetera. So that's the first part. The second part with the laboratory is we want this to be a working space. So we are going to have time to work and to be working together, to have rough first drafts for, failure to be okay, and for a place for us to give feedback and, see things as in motion. Um, and also to do, right? It's going to be more than just writing policies, but we want people to actually be doing things, be actually, set up a meeting with teachers, do a little focus group, see what they're doing, see what they're not doing. Go do the same with parents or students. Actually get in the field and figure some things out. Don't just write documents that go sit in a drive somewhere. And then the last piece is that cohort model, this kind of support network of other people. Like I said, that idea of like, who do I look around and ask a question to? We're creating that out of thin air. All the participants, there's a cap, so we don't have too many, but we're gonna have so many districts in a cohort together, and they're gonna be, on this journey together, so they can swap notes, they can share, ideas, they can red team or red hat for each other. Like, well, why not? What if you said this, or why can't you get this passed? And so we hope that with those three kind of components, this is a really robust program, and people walk away again, not just with documents, but with sort of already being at cruising altitude, as it were, because they're in motion and they're doing stuff.
And did you say this was face to face? Is it online? Is it a little both or
Yeah. So the program is set up to be virtual
okay, fully virtual. Okay.
in terms of the sort of the synchronous sessions. So those will be about 3 hours. They're once a month, and that's when we actually get together and we are face to face virtually, but working together, talking about best in practice, looking at policies and saying, here's what works, here's what doesn't work. Someone bringing theirs in saying, here's what I've got. Do y'all think this still works? Or is there something missing? And everyone's saying, nah, we have this use case and that's not going to cover that. So you might want to consider it. Uh, um, there's also time when we think these teams, when there's teams involved, that they're going to be back at home working in their district. They're going to be around a lunch table or a boardroom table saying, okay, here's what we heard from an expert in student data protection. How do we make sure that what that person said is in our student handbook from the standpoint of one, covering ourselves, but for two, giving students what they need to know about using this tool or that tool. There's office hours. There's going to be times for people to hop on together and ask questions, ask follow-ups. And so it's going to be a little bit of synchronous virtual work as well as asynchronous, and sort of side conversation, office hours kind of setups.
Okay, good. Yeah. No, I know that traveling would obviously be great to meet people, but is very
Yeah,
much a hindrance in terms of actually accomplishing that, and trying to meet that many times. So,
yeah,
I appreciate that you are offering that synchronous nature because those live conversations I think are going. I would love to receive a recording. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. No, go on in.
I would love to be a fly on the wall to
Yeah,
hear some of these conversations is really what I mean because I know there's questions that I have, but there's probably a million questions I haven't even thought of. Just because I am not in all of those various positions who are having to make these decisions. So I'm really excited to hear about this. Now, you're gonna get started this summer, right?
yeah. So
The first cohort.
the first cohort will kick off in July, which for some people is I mean it's soon, but for some people it's like we just got to
We did it
summer.
yesterday.
Yeah. So what we're also going to do is we're going to open up cohorts that start in August and September, and
Okay.
even as we need to. But we're going to start with July. That one's filling up really quickly, so it just naturally will kind of open up the August and September ones. But the program is meant to then go, more or less a whole calendar year. So some folks might go a little bit into the next summer if we want to get on an accelerated path, we could do that. But the reason why we wanted to, not just do a week of, go, go, go is because
Mm-hmm.
we know that these conversations take time. You come back with, hey, one of the schools we worked with realized they needed to do a parent permission form. Anyone over 13 can use AI per the technology policies, but they still need a parent signature. And it's a really important thing. So one of our school districts that we're working with from this last year realized, oh man, what are we going to do about this parent piece? Like literally, when are we going to collect thousands of signatures, and how are we going to log it? Like, in what system is it going to live? And where are we going to host the FAQ? What's going to be on it? All these questions that came up, and it realized like, oh, we actually need 5 teams to weigh in on this before we can even begin to think about rolling out a parent permission form, right?
One little piece. Yep.
That's one little piece. If you're trying to do that in an afternoon of a 5 day, sprint, it's
Mm-hmm.
just you can't get anywhere with that. So we know these conversations take time. People are out of the office, they're at different buildings, everybody's teaching every day, and so we wanted to give these things time to breathe and give people the space to actually accomplish them and come back to the leadership team, come back to the board and say, here's what we've got. Can you all bless this or approve it or implement it? And so that's what we're going to take the year. We're going to make sure that people have the time and the space to get these things right, to action them, and to make sure that again that they don't finish the school year without these things, these boxes all checked, and them feeling comfortable and confident that they're ready to tackle AI in the future.
No, that's the right way to do it. I mean, and honestly, that's what I've been trying to tell people. Like, wait, wait just a minute. Like, just take a breath. We don't just because it came out doesn't mean you have to use it in class tomorrow. I know you're excited, but there's just so many things we haven't thought about yet. And, like we just need to be very thoughtful about this process. And like you said, this is different. We've been through big disruptions before, but nothing like this. Nothing where the foundation for the technology already exists in everybody's pocket. That's kind of what I've told people who've made comments when I try to say how much more cautious I want to be about this. They're like, "Oh, you sound like when the car came out or whatever." That's what people said. I'm like, "Hang on." It's like what you said earlier. Everybody couldn't afford
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Everybody didn't have we already own all the things now. Everybody, like, and not to say there's not a divide. I know that, but I mean, the majority of our workforce and of our students, even from a certain age, already have this. It's already there. So we're already behind, and we cannot waste any time, just twiddling our thumbs and putting band-aids on problems, which unfortunately seems to happen a lot in education. So I'm very excited to see what you're building and to know that you're approaching this so thoughtfully and throughout the year, because I know they're going to come back. They're going to face an issue at their school that they never thought they would face, and they're going to be able to share that. And so collectively, they're going to be able to all learn from that. That collaboration piece I think is also incredible. So, first cohort starts in July. We've got continuing cohorts. So no matter when somebody happens to catch up and see this video or hear this information, we're recording now at the end of May. So I know you still have a few spots for July if they want to jump in. But if people want to learn more about this, they want to go there, how do they find the information and register?
Yeah. So evergreened.ai is where they can go, and that'll be the hub to figure everything out. And we'll link. Hopefully, we can link to it somehow with this video.
Yes,
Uh,
we will.
and the cool thing we're going to be able to offer to the Shakeup learning community is a discount. We know that budgets can always be tight, and there are certain cliffs that are approaching that we're not going to speak too much of, and so we're trying to make this accessible to folks, while also accounting for the time for the people who are going to come in and sort of lead us and guide us and make sure that we can get the best of the best into our program. So the way the program is set up is you can pay per person. It's $3,500. If you want to pay for a team, it's actually a much better deal. So you can bring a team of six for $12,000. So the per person price drops quite a bit, and you get more bang for your buck because your team is bigger, and you can kind of extend that out to more departments or sites or whatever it might be. And we know this is a significant investment. This is obviously not just like a $100 weekend course or something, but we
Right.
think it's actually really comparable to going to a great conference, right? Once you think about conference fees and travel and accommodations and all those things, it's
But
pretty
this
much
is a year. This is a year.
yeah, and,
That's
and
huge.
that's what we're hoping is that people see the value.
Yeah.
Now it's far
It's
less
credit.
fun than going to Nashville or to Denver or whatever it might be for the week. But when we think about impact and the ability to get all this guidance and support over a long period of time, which is we know it takes that's what it takes in education, right? It's going to be a concerted effort over a long period of time. We think this is a really good value and something that districts will ultimately invest in because it becomes untenable to avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I agree, and I'm so grateful and excited. Like I said, I think that when you really think about it, I mean that it's an incredible value for the amount of time that this program is going to go through and what you're offering. But you are also offering a special discount for Shake Up Learning, and I'm very grateful for that. I know many of my audience members will be also grateful. So how do they get that discount? Is it there a coupon code?
Yeah, yep. So if folks
Okay.
want, they can go to the website. They can, put however many seats they want into the shopping cart, and then just use the discount code Shake, SHAKE, and that will take either $250 off an individual seat or $500 off of a team registration.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
just takes a little bit of the edge off. You can go back to this to the CFO or the finance team or the soup and say, "Hey, I got us a deal. What can we do here?" And I know that the Shakeup community is one that is very invested in professional development, is always kind of pushing forward and into the new thing, and so hopefully this is something that is real value add and something unique and timely.
I think so. And I think our conversation here today alone, it's in itself what was very valuable. I mean, there's just so many pieces that we have to put together in order to approach this thoughtfully
Yeah.
from the school level. And so I will make sure that we have links to everything down below the video in the video description. So be sure that you click down below. Of course, you can see evergreened.ai on Ryan's background as well and go learn more about Ryan and what he's doing with Evergreen. It's just I think your team is taking the approach that I really wish others were doing right now. I'll just put it that way. That I am cautiously optimistic about what this is bringing to the table. I just want to do it right, and I think you guys are doing it right. So, thank you, Ryan, for all your work and for sharing with us today.
Thanks, Casey. Appreciate it.